Welcome back to another episode of Square State Sandlot. Your hosts today are Bill, as always, and myself, Kyle. We have a lot to talk about. We unfortunately, it's been over a week since we've been able to do one of these, so it's amazing how fast things pile up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Before
I
we
don't know
get
if I could
started,
say unfortunate for me.
well, no,
I
you had a good
obviously
time.
wanted to do some, but had a good time. Had a
And we'll
good
talk
time.
about that a little bit. Before we get too far into this, I just want to take a moment. By now, I'm sure anyone that follows football in any capacity probably has heard about Dwayne Haskins and that horrible situation. Um, Mostly just want to, throw condolences out. Obviously, it's 24-year-old kids, way too young. Um, it's just a horrible situation. Down there training with his teammates down in Florida, and to get, literally hit by a dump truck. It's horrible. Um, awesome kid, man. I was looking forward to obviously continuing to watch his career, but this extends way past football. He has a wife at home. It's just horrible situation. So condolences to the family, friends, teammates, whole nine yards. Just a horrible situation.
For sure. And the thing that kind of upsets me is how people struggle to separate football from people's lives. And
Yeah.
I mean, you had one of the most well-known reporters in Adam Schefter, and he put out a tweet basically saying, "I don't even." He deleted the tweet by the time I heard about it, but I think
Basically, he described him as quarterback for Washington and Pittsburgh that struggled to ever get his footing, I think, or something like that.
yeah,
We talked about his struggles, and it's like,
yeah.
man,
So essentially,
they,
just shit
yeah,
on the football player rather than saying what a horrible loss or whatever
yeah,
for a young human being. I mean,
it's not about
24
football.
is way too young to lose your life, and obviously to boil his life down to what he did on a football field is not ideal. So I wish we did a better job of that. I know as fans sometimes we get kind of caught up in what they do on the football field, and that's their whole life according to us. But just remember, at some point, it's also their life, and they have, like you said, a wife at home that has to go on without him. So terrible loss, horrible tragedy. I didn't read all the details just because it sickened me just even seeing the headline. But
Yeah,
with that being said,
terrible.
I
But
mean,
while we're talking about off the field, and that's where the real player exists, this is a nice segue to one of my favorites, Cam Newton. He strikes
yeah,
again. Um, So I guess a quick rundown. Basically, Cam Newton was on a podcast. It may have even been his podcast. I'm not 100% sure. Um, basically, talking about modern day women, basically. And his issue was that he wants a woman that'll learn how to cook, know when to shut up, and basically let the man lead. And obviously, anybody who knows me, these comments, they make my skin crawl. But
yeah,
I already hate the man. I've never made that.
yeah. I
Uh,
I saw the clip, and I also saw in the comments basically people dismissing it, saying he also, if you listen to the whole podcast, he also said like stuff about men and how they need to act right or whatever. I don't know what was said. I only saw the women part, and it was absolutely disgusting. No way to defend that. Um, yeah, so tough. Like I said, I've always liked Cam, but I don't know where he was going with that. And like I said, you can't defend that. So I hope what he said later on in the podcast came around and wrapped it all into one
yeah,
and made it
I've
made
seen
sense.
all
But
that too.
I
And
don't know
yeah,
what
get good
else was said.
comments on the other side, but just no place for it, man. Get your shit together. But
Yep.
he's in good company because there's a few people we're going to talk about tonight that are not what I would consider model citizens. So, man, what do you make of this Dan Snyder stuff? This saga continues. Um,
Yeah. I haven't seen any new news since basically,
since
the two
Congress.
books and not providing the money from the revenue sharing essentially. So that's the latest I've seen on it. And I think we kind of talked about it already. It's sad, but I think this is what's going to be that what forces him out as an owner is basically taking money out of other owners' pockets because
Well, and from what I understand, I real recently is the reason I even put it on here. From what I understand, they did actually make a ruling, only in regards to the, um, basically stealing money from other teams and all that, and they're basically moving forward with that. It was more of a not if, it's a matter of when and how much. So it'll be very interesting to see how that progresses. But for them to come out and flat out say that, yes, this is what we think's been going on, um, they're definitely going to build a case against them and move forward with it, which I'm happy about because, I mean, he's a scumbag, obviously. But, um, man, I don't know. This could be pretty big. You could see a lot of money getting thrown out.
I wish there was a way that they could make it so he can only sell it for what he bought it for plus the inflation. So that
That's so
way
much terrible
he
things.
essentially
Gonna
gets
make
his
so
money
much
back,
money.
and then the rest of the money goes to the other 31 teams split evenly. Since he was obviously screwing the rest of the teams out of money, that might be a decent
That would be
solution.
amazing.
Obviously, they can't do that because he bought it and he owns the rights to it or whatever. But hopefully, he at least has to pay back whatever he stole from the other teams, and then the rest of the billionaires will be happy.
Yeah, I love that idea, honestly, because it's the one thing that'll make this situation obviously sit wrong still is, okay, yeah, it came to light, something was done, but if he cashes out and is just set for life,
Well, he's already set for life, but yeah,
touche,
like
touche.
we've
But for
talked
him to
about,
come out on top, it's like, come on.
yeah, even though he's going to be forced to sell the team and he won't have that annual revenue, he's going to be sitting on 2+ billion when he bought the team for I think 800 million is what we talked about last time. So he's going to be doing just fine. And
Absolutely.
if you make them sell it for what they bought it for plus inflation, then they're breaking even, and that would be a complete slap on the wrist because he's not getting any additional money and he loses that revenue stream. So that would be fantastic. But like I said, I don't think that would ever be a possibility. I think he would be able to win that case in the court of law that he has the rights to sell it
Yeah,
for whatever the market value is. But
unfortunately.
moving on from that
Now we can actually talk
debacle
about
going
real
on.
football stuff.
Yeah. So a move that my team made was we actually extended Derek Carr. Um, on paper, it's a 3-year, $121.5 million extension added to the year he currently has on the books. I believe there's only about 62 million guaranteed of that 121 million, and it added a couple million on to this year's total. So when you average that out, I think it's 35.3 million per year, something like that, with the additional year that's already on the books for this season. That puts him about, I think it's 7th above Kirk Cousins, and I think that's about the right spot. And honestly, this was a very team friendly deal. They essentially have an out after next year where they could cut him and only end up paying him 6.5 million in dead cap money. The rest is not guaranteed. So basically, they have 2 years where they can prove it with Devontae Adams. If they do well, and let's say they win a Super Bowl, they can obviously redo this contract again or give him more guaranteed money. Whatever they would do, there's essentially a 3-year window that they've mapped out with the contracts they've done where it's Super Bowl or bust essentially. And I don't want to put that pressure on them, but that's what they're doing right now.
I mean, it's the next logical step for you guys.
Yeah.
You're already competing in your division, so I mean, top of the AFC's next. I mean,
Yep.
honestly, that's where you need to end up. So I
Yeah,
love it though. I love it.
No, I like I said, last year I was ready to move on from Derek Carr, and that was mostly because it seems like we've gotten the best out of him. But at the same time, I acknowledge he's a good quarterback, and you don't move on from him unless you have another plan and someone to move on to. So when you add his best friend Devontae Adams, you get all those weapons around him. Now it's time to prove what he can do. And if he can't, then I mean, you know what you have in him. You could probably trade him and move on if you want, or obviously cut him with minimal loss there. So excited to see what him and Devontae can do. I think Waller will probably be gone after this season, so I think they'll see what he can do. I think Renfro will get an extension, and then I think they'll probably extend Foster Moreau at tight end as well. So should be a very entertaining season. I can't wait to see what they do, especially on the defensive side of the football with Patrick Graham as their defensive coordinator. And obviously the draft is still upcoming, so they're going to add a couple pieces in the draft as well. Granted, they only have 5 picks, but 5 picks should net at least 2 or 3 starters. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the moves, and I mean we'll dive into a few of these other ones too. But this is one of the better moves I've seen a team make, especially in a league right now where all these contracts are getting just out of control. This was good for the player, good for the team, um, and I really just like Derek Carr, honestly. Hearing his interview afterwards, he's the kind of guy you want behind center. He just kept saying, "I told my agent I only want to be a Raider," and his agent was like, "Well, do you want to do this? Do you want to do that?" And he said, "I only want to be a Raider.
Yep.
Make it reasonable, but make it happen." And that's who you want. I mean, those are the quarterbacks that allow a franchise to grow and build around them. Is when they are not trying to gobble up every ounce of money. So, well done,
Well,
well done, Raiders.
yeah, no, and he got market rate. I mean,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
his like I said, I think it averages out to 35.3 average annual value. That's about where he should be. If you look at the current quarterback contracts, that puts him right where he should be in that sweet spot. But it also gives the team flexibility to add Devontae Adams and to extend Hunter Renfro. So
Exactly.
it yeah, and hearing him say that, basically he said, I want to be a Raider or I want to go golf. So
That's what he said. I forgot about the
yeah,
golf comment.
yeah. So
I love
we'll
it.
see if he's golfing in a couple of years. That's not a good thing for the Raiders.
No,
But
hopefully no
if
golf in the foreseeable future.
if he's extended for a couple more years and we win a Super Bowl, that's obviously the dream scenario there. So what do you think about the Packers adding Sammy Watkins?
I mean, I think it's a good pickup. It's not a Devonte Adams replacement, but
No.
Sammy had some good seasons. Obviously, he came out of the gate pretty hot when he first hit the NFL, and then he's kind of turned into a journeyman. But um, I mean, if he's your second, third guy, I think he has the potential to make an impact on the games. And at this point, I think the Pack will probably go heavy wide receiver in the draft. Um, I'm sure they'll have more in there, but I think he can at least make an impact. Maybe not what he used to be, but he also didn't have Aaron Rodgers throwing him the ball, so we'll see
Right.
what happens there.
I think he'll definitely. I mean, he's betting on himself. He essentially signed a 350,000 guaranteed contract. I think it can be worth up to 1.8. It's a 1-year deal, so that's obviously very team friendly in terms of what they're probably going to get out of him. If he can stay healthy, he's still an impact player. It's just been if he's been able to stay healthy, and he hasn't been the last couple of years. So if they can get 10, 15 games out of him and he's an impact player, that's well worth that contract they gave him. Plus, right now, who else do they have on that football field for Rodgers to throw to? You got to think about that. So,
Yeah. No, I
okay,
agree. Sammy Watkins was a good one, and then Stefan Gilmore to the Colts.
it's a
That
good
one kind
signing.
of it kind of surprised me, but as soon as it happened, I think it's good for both of them. I think Stephon Gilmore was another one that like he was literally the brightest defensive star in the league for a season. Um, kind of came back to earth a little bit. but I think a fresh start like this with the Colts and an already strong defense, um, I think he might be poised to really have another breakout year. I mean,
Yeah.
he's obviously good. He's on the top end of the hat or top half of the league, but I think he may return to his top form with the Colts.
Yeah.
So
And we've
we'll see what
talked about
happens.
where, you add a player of that caliber to a defense that he doesn't need to be the star.
Right.
It gives them the leeway if they're still working their way back from injury or whatever. He's been injured the last couple of seasons, and that's why he's had that drop off. He was traded to the Panthers and couldn't really get right while he was on their team either from the Patriots. But I think he was Defensive Player of the Year 1 year with the Patriots, and then he was top 5 for Defensive Player of the Year voting that second season. So he's definitely a great cornerback. And if he's not having to be, a lockdown cornerback, if they do a lot of that zone in Indianapolis, I think it's going to work out well. Gus Bradley's obviously the defensive coordinator for them, and he does a lot of that cover 3 where they're playing mostly zone. So that's a great system for him to get into. I've also heard, and we'll talk. Well, let's just get into it right now. I've heard that Deebo Samuels wants out of San Francisco, and he would be a fantastic fit in Indianapolis. What do you think about that?
First off, because we're going to talk about Debo and we're going to talk about Kyler Murray. This is what I was alluding to a few podcasts ago, that it makes me nervous with the way contracts are going to work moving forward because of how different it is from even how it was 10 years ago. There's going to be so much more of this social media aspect of washing my account, and my cousin posted a picture of me with a New York Jets billboard. And I mean, I don't know. It's a power struggle thing with players now. So with that aside, I don't like this aspect of the league at all. But I don't know. Debo is one of them guys, maybe more so than probably any wide receiver in the league, that he could literally go anywhere and just make an impact because of the type of player he is, the way that they run him, the way that they throw to him. He would do well anywhere, but I do agree with you that somewhere like Indy, who, I mean, they could really use an actual number 1 receiver.
Yeah.
And I know a certain quarterback that would be more than happy to have him there.
Well, and
I
he
don't know. It's
reminds me a
crazy.
lot of Cordero Patterson, who Matt Ryan
time.
just played with last year in Atlanta. So it would
Swiss
be
Army
almost
knife, man.
almost a plug and play. Although a lot of the contention that Debo has is about his usage in the backfield.
Yeah.
And I think the reason for that is if they end up franchise tagging him, they can say, he's kind of a running back and split that value. So I think I don't know if that's exactly what the Niners were going for when they started lining him up in the backfield, but he doesn't like being used in the backfield, obviously, because that
but he's
would
good
give
at
them the right to designate him as a running back / wide receiver and lower that cap hit. They still have the rights to him for 2 more seasons. So if they want to, they could really just strong arm him and say, fine, don't show up and see what happens. You keep finding him. He doesn't have the money that Kyler Murray has. Kyler Murray got $1 million from the A's just for signing on the paper. And so he had that just to bankroll him through the rest of his NFL career if he really wants to. Deebo Samuels hasn't had that big payday yet. So,
well, and this is why it's so crazy to me, man. I mean, it used to be you had to be right, wrong, or indifferent. You used to have to be one of the quote unquote top players to even have any kind of, any kind of weight to throw around when it came to this kind of stuff. And now you could almost be anyone and, come out, I want to trade, or I'm not happy. And, I just, I don't know. It's one of those things. I always think it ends up hurting people in the end. Like we've talked, we're both very pro player. I want them to end up with the best they can. because the teams will do well anyways. But with that being said, it's still always so weird to me that they call them contracts because they shouldn't really. In the real world, you sign a contract and it's binding.
Yeah.
Um, it's like a guideline anymore in the NFL. If you're unhappy, then you complain enough that they get rid of you. I don't know. It's crazy because it sucks for San Francisco because say they do put it together and Trey Lance um, I'm assuming it'll be Trey Lance. We'll see.
Might be
Say
Garoppolo
he's
again.
right. Well, and that's why I say that. But say they piece something together and make another playoff run. I don't know. It's just crazy. It's crazy how easily players can kind of direct this stuff. So I guess we'll see what happens. But he's probably gonna have a lot of people courting him. But I bet you they're gonna want to have him in the run game as well.
Yeah,
We'll see.
I think they're going to want to use him as that Swiss Army knife. But I think on the other side of that too, he's only had one good season. So
Right.
for him to basically demand a payday after one good season, a lot of the teams before they're going to want to extend him, they're going to want to see one more season that this can be sustained. It's not just a flash in the pan. So even if he gets traded to another team, maybe they'll give him a slight bump maybe they'll give him like a signing bonus or something. Move up some of the guaranteed money from later years in the contract or something like that. But I don't think any team's going to sign him to a long-term deal after one good season.
This is kind of I'm beating a dead horse with this. I absolutely hate the precedents that all this is setting. Because you're right, he's not going to get Devontae Adams money, and rightfully so.
No.
Um,
Although Devontae Adams money is kind of monopoly money towards the end of that deal, but
that's true. That's true. But as far as
he's not getting Christian Kirk money.
There we go. Don't get me started. But
how pathetic is that?
That's weird.
He's the one that started this whole thing. Like, if Christian Kirk doesn't sign that contract, I don't know if the Raiders have Devontae Adams right now.
I don't think so, and I don't think
the rest of these wide receivers that are way better than Christian Kirk are going, well, what about me? I can do what he does.
And that's
I want $22 million a year.
This has trickled down so far and you're right. Deebo Samuels is talented, but you're very right. He's only had really one impressive season. So
Christian Kirk, or did you say Deebo?
Deebo.
Okay, I was going to say Christian Kirk hasn't had an impressive season.
No,
not one.
None. But Deebo, for someone in that situation to now make this, it's not a request, it's a demand. Let's not get it twisted. Whether they honor it or not, obviously the team has the control. But the term request has always made me laugh. But it basically opens the door for literally any player to just be like, no, I want out. I want something else.
Well, and that's the funny thing is he claimed it was about the compensation, and then it turned into that my usage because San Francisco said, "Okay, let's negotiate. What do you want to do? We'll extend you right now." And then he said, "No, it's not about the money now." So
because they tried to extend him multiple times, I think.
They've said, as soon as he's ready to engage in a contract extension, we'll talk to him, but he hasn't been willing to do so. So it seems like he just wants to go to another situation. And for players like this, I hope they end up with the Jets. I hope they end up with Washington, so they can just suck for the next 5 years, get their money, and then go away. Because that's what's going to happen if he goes to the Jets. No disrespect to Zach Wilson, but
they're not there. It's not an insult. They're just not. They're not going to be like San Francisco is. They're competitive in their division and the entire NFC.
The Jets have to go up against the Patriots, which I don't think they're going to be as good as they were last year. But they have to go up against the Bills that will absolutely stomp them. And then the Dolphins that are massively improving. So I feel like the Jets are looking at maybe 5 losses just in their division. So maybe 6. You never know. But it's not a good situation to be. And if Deebo can make them a little better, how much improvement is one player going to make when you have to put 11 or 10 others out there on the field at the same time? And then you still have the defense that needs to be cleaned up. Robert Saleh is a great defensive coach, but that defense was not great last year, and
No, they had more pieces.
some of that's from the offense not doing much. So it's tough to blame that entirely on Saleh and the defense. But if they don't come around, Zach Wilson, there's going to be a lot of weight on that dude's shoulders. So
Already is, man. It's a rough start going to these teams. The bottom dwellers, and you are expected to turn around. And so Debo, you sign a big contract, you're going to be expected to turn it around, and he's not going to be able to do that by himself. Um, so along the same lines as Debo, old Kyler Murray, he's back in the headlines again. Same story, nothing new.
Every time I hear his name, all I can think of is Quinnen Williams saying it from that Alabama press conference where he said calamari.
Well, and you always say it, so it's always stuck in my head. Yeah, man, I don't know where this is going to go. I think he's ready to. I mean, he's obviously ready to hold out.
I think he's seen how hot of a start the A's are off to, and said maybe I go play some baseball.
Dude, maybe that's the plan. Maybe that was the plan all along. He was waiting for you guys to get rid of the other stars so he could come in and
he can be the savior now.
Yeah, I don't know. This is more of the same for me with Kyler Murray.
I think it's a little bit different because
as far as Kyler Murray, it's more of the same for him.
Well, yes, more of the same for him, but it's a lot different than Debo because
very, very.
You can practice without your starting wide receiver.
Yes.
Can't really practice without your starting quarterback. So I think this is one of those situations that Arizona's probably ready to talk just to get this wrapped up and get him into training camp and get him working with the voluntary workouts with the rookies and all that fun stuff. But he is pissed off. I mean, he put his Instagram photos back, I believe. So I don't know if that indicates some contract extension momentum or anything like that. But I don't think you can go into the season with your starting quarterback not locked up.
No, definitely not.
There's been some rumors that maybe a team in what is it, black and gold, might be interested.
What
do you think about that?
I don't think so.
No?
I don't think we'd spend what he wants for one. Well, I guess it wouldn't matter technically at first, but I don't know. I just don't think he's a fit. Both mentality, both toughness, both. I just don't.
I think Tomlin could make him a fit.
Well, I think Tomlin could deal with anyone. If anyone has proven that, it's Mike Tomlin. But I don't think he fits the Steelers or that city in any way, shape, or form. This has been done with literally every quarterback that could possibly be available this season. So
That's true.
I think we're happy with where we're at with Trubisky and bringing in a rookie. I think we're more than content there. So
I hope you guys end up with Desmond Ritter so much.
Dude,
I know you're hoping for
so much.
I know you're hoping for Malik and Kenny Pickett, but Desmond Ritter would be no small prize, I think.
I went from I'd be happy with either of those two to I'd be happy with either of those three. So
yeah,
he's come on pretty strong. I think the thing I like about him the most is I think he fits. I think he fits the mindset and our approach, maybe more so than the other two do. I don't know, because Kenny Pickett is a bit of the kind of the Alabama factor, as I call it. They get almost everything, their peak out of them in college.
Yeah.
Obviously, Kenny's ceiling's not as high as maybe the other two, but I don't know. We'll see where that goes.
Yeah, but Kenny still scares me because of like the whole glove situation. I don't want to say small hands, although it does concern me a little bit because
whatever, they grew like an eighth of an inch in like
I said, weeks. Derek Carr has the second smallest hands, I think, in the NFL, and that guy is constantly fumbling the football, constantly. And so
he just got a 3-year, $121 million extension, my dude.
Now we just need to get him a hand extension, and we'll be fine.
Just stretch him out. That's all it is. All right, I'm done crying about these guys. Moral of the story is I just wish sometimes these players would shut up and play out their contract and whatever.
Yeah, although like specific to the wide receiver and well, I don't know. I feel like almost any position, the way that the rookie contracts are set up, if you play well, you're clearly being exploited because Kyler
Well,
Murray's play is worth 35 million a year and he's probably making a third of that maybe in his fourth year. First 3 years were a lot less. So,
I guess for me, terrible analogy because I'm going to use an NBA player, but take like a Scottie Pippen for example. I mean, yes, he chose to sign that contract that he did, but he was such an underpaid player to be one of
oh,
the
for
top
sure.
players in the league. When it's that glaring of a slight, then yes, I think something needs addressed. Something's, you know what I mean? The team does
See,
then owe you a little bit at that point. Kyler Murray, had he been getting them to NFC championships regularly, I think it's a whole nother narrative.
but what were
Um,
they doing before he got there?
like you're right, you're right. I mean, I get that.
So
It's
that's where I have a problem with it because like I don't want to go back to the old system where you have Jamarcus Russell getting
yeah,
60 million guaranteed and playing basically I think it was 18 games for the Raiders and the Raiders basically being in cap hell for the rest of his contract. I don't want it to go back to that, but I
I
want
agree.
there to be some kind of sliding scale where if you get rookie of the year, maybe your next year you get much
Yeah, I
higher
mean
than you would have.
that should be built into every league.
Yeah,
I agree.
because you don't want as an organization obviously you want cheap labor if you can get it, but at the same time you don't want your players to be getting into this situation where year 2 or 3 they're already pissed off about their contract and asking for a trade because they're severely underpaid. And at the end of the day you could rip up that contract if you really wanted to and sign them to an extension, but if there's those sliding scales built in, we have the best of both worlds. If
Yeah,
rookies come in and they underperform, they're going to only get paid what they can get paid through the rest of their contract. Like if we were paying Clee Farrell what he would have been paid, pick number 4,
yeah.
before they went to the rookie scale, that would have been a huge cap hit. And he's a backup at this point. Like he might not even make the roster in what's his 5th season. So
No,
it's
I
just
agree with you. I mean, we were. I guess the problem is I feel like rather than us meeting in the middle, we just jump to the other side now.
yep.
And I think that's what bothers me because I think situations like Kyler Murray is what opens the door for the Debo situations. Because now a player can come in and have one solid season and they're entitled now to top pay in the league.
Well, and to be fair, I mean, if you take away Cooper Cup, he's the best receiver in the league for last season,
For sure.
based on the numbers he put up. I think Devontae had more receiving yards, more touchdowns, but Debo had like 500 yards rushing and a couple touchdowns rushing as well. So if you factor in all the total yards, total touchdowns, I think Debo had more. So it's just tough. And like I said, maybe we take a page out of baseball's book and do that like what they're doing with the pre-arbitration
Right.
pool, where they can get bonuses based on where they vote or where they come up in MVP voting, where they come up in Rookie of the Year voting, and things like that. I think that would be a great solution for the NFL, for the NFLPA, where we don't have these guys before they even realize their potential and build their brand up with your team. They're already asking to get out. So
Exactly.
I think that would be probably a solid move to make. But
I would
speaking of
love
the draft,
it.
who are a couple guys you have your eyes on? Maybe not necessarily for the first round. We know you guys
um,
might go with quarterback, but maybe second, third round. Any steals you might think of?
um, the one, the one that I've seen us linked to a few times that I actually really like, mostly because I got to watch him play a decent amount. Um, but Khalil Shakur, I always say his name wrong, but
Yep.
out of Boise State, I really, really like what he brings to the table. He is so crisp running routes. He's not the fastest guy on the field. Um, Obviously, a lot of this pick at it would probably be a second round pick for us. A lot of this has to do with Juju leaving. He's a little bit smaller, but he's one of those guys that I think if he hit the weight room and a pro program, put on a little bit of bulk, because he's not a burner. He's never going to be the fastest guy. So him adding some bulk isn't going to hurt his game. I could see him being a Juju over the middle kind of player, because say what you will about Juju, the man had grit when it came to playing across the middle of the field.
You
And that's
think he'll
something I would
go
love to have back.
as early as the second round?
I think it's absolutely possible, if maybe third.
You're going to say, I think he's more likely to go third.
The only thing I'm worried about with the wide receiver situation is because of how stacked the wide receivers are, that if there's a crazy run on wide receivers, that that second round might be a huge run on them.
Yeah, I could see that.
So I don't know. We'll see. You're right. It might be a little bit of a reach, but
we don't go till the third round, so I haven't been paying too close of attention. Is that your only one you got an eye on, or do you have any others?
Outside of that one, obviously, it's kind of the cliche lineman picks for us. Maybe defensive tackles, but I don't really have anyone specifically in mind. A lot of it will depend on how that first round and early second round shakes up, because I know
you guys have a glut of linebackers, but I wouldn't mind seeing one Chad Muma on your defense.
I would love it, but the thing that's going to probably hold us back from even probably taking a linebacker is obviously the Miles Jack coming in. As much as Devin Bush frustrates me, the one thing on his side is he's coming off of, this will be his first fresh year healthy. Last year was his bounce back after the surgery. And I will totally acknowledge that can obviously affect your game, because he didn't seem right all year long. But I'm also not I don't like him. I don't like his mentality and his attitude. So I'm not a big Devin Bush fan, but I think that's probably what will stop us from even looking linebacker until way late, if anything. But I would love to see old Muma end up somewhere I at least don't hate seeing him play. I'm a big. He's such a cool guy. Anyone who hasn't paid any attention to him, he's a type 1 diabetic, and even already at his level, he's already very involved with programs with children and other type 1 sufferers. So he's just a cool guy. He's super positive. I just really like him. I would love to see him go to one of our teams, just so that I know that I'm following him pretty regularly. But I just want him to go to anywhere with a good situation, like Logan Wilson. I mean, somewhere he can thrive.
You know where he's going to end up?
Where?
Denver.
Don't say that. God, don't say that. I've heard this.
Dude, that's his hometown team. He's from Colorado.
I know.
That's where he's going to end up, and then I'm going to have such a hard time rooting for him until he gets traded.
Well, if I can root for Logan Wilson over in Cincy, you're going to have to suck it up.
Well, I'll definitely be rooting for him, except when I don't know, man. I'll be rooting for him individually, but I
want you to get 35 tackles in this game, but lose by 40.
Yeah, there we go.
All right. Yeah, I mean, that's it for me, I guess. Wide receiver, or defensive or offensive lineman. But what do you got? What are you looking at?
So I have a few, and like I said, we don't go till the third round, so there's a possibility we trade back in with some picks from next year and take someone higher, such as a Muma. Devin Lloyd's going to be well off the board. I would love to see us add a linebacker. So one of the ones that should be maybe around in the third round is Leo Chenal from Wisconsin. They constantly have good linebackers. They're constantly a great defensive team. You've seen J.J. Watt. You've seen a lot of players come from Wisconsin. So is TJ did he go to Wisconsin as well? Okay. TJ Watt, he's okay. I've heard of him.
I think I've heard he's pretty good.
Yeah. So they have the running streak of, good defensive ends, defensive tackles, linebackers, all that fun stuff. So I would like to see Leo Chenal. He may be gone by the time they pick in the third round, especially since they're later third. I think he might even go in the second. There's a guy you might have heard of before, Kobe Bryant.
Yes.
Not the basketball player,
Well,
but
yes, I
Kobe
also
Bryant
get your joke.
from Cincinnati. Cincinnati has a great group of defensive players coming into
They
this
have
draft. There's
two
a
that are really,
safety.
really good.
Yeah, they've got Sauce Gardner. He's going to go top 5 probably, but Kobe Bryant is no slouch, and he was on the other side of that defensive backfield. They have a safety that's probably going to be available 3rd, 4th round. That's also a great player. So,
Did you happen to catch Kobe's interview on?
no, I haven't seen much about the draft.
He was pretty impressive. He's well put together. He's going to be a good kid.
Yeah, and then just because we take a Alabama wide receiver all the time, John Mechie the third, he should be available in that 3rd round. He's a fast kid. Um, I don't want to make light of why we have a need at wide receiver because obviously the situation where we had the drunk driver and all that fun stuff killed a young lady and her dog. But I believe John Mechie could be a great fit with the Raiders, where he's one of those fast burners, helps take the defense off over the top. We don't really have that on the roster right now, so if we were able to add one of those, that would make our strong offense even more dynamic, and I would say almost unstoppable. So those are just a couple of the guys I have my eyes on. Obviously, if Muma slips, don't see that happening. If he slips to the 3rd round, that would be an absolute steal. If we trade back up into the 2nd or 1st round, I would love to see Devin Lloyd on the Raiders.
I would too. I think he would be such an awesome addition to that defense. But
I think he'll probably go top 20.
I would say
if I were to guess,
top 25 for sure. It's going to be a weird draft, man. There's the quarterback situation where they're not necessarily as a group at the same level as other draft classes have been. The fact that the wide receivers are stacked the way they are, the defensive linemen are unreal in this draft. I think it's going to be weird because depending on how these first 10 picks drop, it's more so than in years past. I think it's really going to dictate where this draft goes in at least the first 2 rounds.
Yeah.
I don't know. I love watching the draft. It's almost as much fun for me as the season. And I usually kind of have a pulse. Granted, I'm usually picking back in the day a certain individual's draft predictions, but I don't really have a feel at all for how it's going to go. Like, I have no idea, none whatsoever.
Yeah, I don't think anyone really does. I mean, it's going to be interesting because I've seen plenty of rumors where the Panthers are willing to move back, and they're seen to be the first team that's going to be willing to take a quarterback. And the rumor basically said they're willing to trade back and still confident that they would get one of Malik Willis or Kenny Pickett, even if they trade back into the late teens. And I'm assuming they have to trade
ahead of the Saints. They should probably.
Well, and the Saints may be set. I mean, they've got Jameis. I think he could carry them for the next 2 to 3 seasons with no real drop off. I mean, they were kind of a mess last year after he went out, but assuming he can stay healthy, he had them in the mix for that division. And you've got to assume Brady will probably go for maybe 1 or 2 more years, but I think he could easily outlast him and carry the Saints into a better record in the next couple of seasons. So it'll be interesting. Like you said, I have no pulse on who's going where. I think we know a couple players that are going to go top 10, top 5. Like I said, top Sauce Gardner. I'd be shocked if he's still on the board at 5. He's one of those huge playmakers that's rare to get at cornerback position. You've got the defensive lineman from Georgia. Basically, their whole defensive line will be drafted probably in the 1st round. So
there's a lot of DNs too, a lot of edge rushers. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, you've got Thibodeau from Oregon. You've got Hutchinson from Detroit, or not Detroit, Michigan. Basically the same thing.
Whatever.
But probably going to Detroit, maybe Jacksonville. So yeah, I can't wait to see what happens. And honestly, it's going to suck watching Vegas host it and my team not have a
So
pick
weird.
until
It's
the third
kind of,
round.
you should almost get an honorary pick because it just doesn't seem right, but whatever.
Yeah. And I still want to see what everything I'm saying. I think you have to pay for seating in the actual like draft area, but I don't think they're closing off the strip or anything. So you could stand on the other side of the Bellagio where that path is, and I think you could see everything. So I'm
Huh.
still debating maybe making a little quick trip down to Vegas. So we'll see.
Just get you a room up there in the Bellagio with a high window looking out over.
Yeah.
See
So
what you can do.
everything I'm reading, it says free entry to draft experience. You just have to register for NFL One Pass online. So
Huh.
I really think most of the stuff is open to the public.
I must have
So
been looking at some kind of a package thing.
yeah, I think you probably were looking at like a hotel and all that fun stuff that's
Huh.
built in. VIP experience, all that fun stuff. I know they charge for that, but I think if you're just going to watch the draft, it's free to get in. So have to look at it. See, that's coming up next weekend.
Yeah, it starts the 28th,
First round's
29th,
on
30th.
Thursday.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting. Like I said, I don't think the Raiders will trade back into the first round, but I wouldn't be surprised if they trade back into the second. So, all right, moving on to Major League Baseball.
Yes,
You
sir.
want to start off with your Pirates and
Yeah,
how
I
they're
mean,
doing?
I'll run through pretty quick. The big news is Bryant Hayes finally he's officially signed an 8-year, 70 mil contract. It's the largest in team history, um, which is amazing. He's
How much
obviously
did you say?
8 year for 70 mil. Yes, this our history making contract is pennies to some other teams, but that's not
Hey,
the point. This is a huge turnaround for the way that we've done business
oh, for sure.
in the recent past. And even at the time of that signing, we hadn't extended Brian Reynolds yet, and that's the extra nugget. He's got a 2-year extension for 6.75 mil each of those years, 22 and 23. I think it really does just buy time and prevents arbitration, and then we give him another extension.
Yep.
Um, while I'm trying to keep myself from getting excited, these are uncharacteristic moves by Bob Nutting. So I'm hoping there's more of this, especially going into next season. This year is still really about seeing our young guys come up and play well, which a lot of them have. Um, Michael Chavez, Diego Castillo, both of them have been playing amazing. Uh, Diego really lit it up in spring training, so I expected him to play well. But Chavis is really he's fielded well, and I mean he started us off with home runs this year with a grand slam. So exciting to watch at the very least. And that's honestly us in a nutshell. We're still just south of 500, but we've stayed in a lot of games and they've played very, very gritty. So um, I'll take it.
If you guys
It's
can
been
just
fun to
beat St.
watch.
Louis, you have a really good record.
Our biggest thing, man, is pitching,
Yep.
which is crazy too because we got guys like Mitch Keller who this was supposed to be his breakout year and he's still struggling a little bit. All of our starters are struggling a little bit, and our bullpen is just lights out right now. It's unreal. Um, like Will Crow, some of the David Bednar, these guys are all coming in and just throwing strikes and outs. I mean, it's wonderful. But if we could ever get, if we ever had an ace to say that, if we ever had a pitcher that came in and just dominated regularly, I think our record would be flipping very quickly. So I'm hoping at some point between now and obviously next season that pitching is addressed, especially. So
You
that's where we're
you had
at.
a
Sorry, go ahead.
you had a couple good pitchers last year.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know what happened to them.
They went bye bye. Um, we do have some young guys coming up. that are exciting pitching wise.
Yep.
We'll see. I think a couple of them will probably be up with us by the end of the season. But ultimately, that's where we're at. Is it's still kind of show and tell with the farm team. So I don't know. I'm super optimistic and happy with it. We've won a lot of games in some pretty cool fashion, some big games, and we've been relatively close in all of them except for a handful. So
Yeah.
I'm happy with it. They don't give up even when we're down. They still keep fighting, and that's all I can ask for a really young team. But mostly, I just want to say, Bob Nutting. I don't know if you have a brain tumor or what, but keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, that's really encouraging. I mean, buying out those final 2 years of Reynolds' arbitration seasons gives you guys a lot less negative feelings going through the arbitration process, and hopefully build some momentum into a long-term extension, maybe another 8 years, another 8-year deal, hopefully for a few
That would
more
be
million for him.
wonderful.
But speaking of extensions, so the A's obviously shipped off everyone. I don't know what they're planning to do long term, but I do want to say that they are playing very well. Great baseball right now. A lot of the early returns for the trades that they made have paid off pretty well. You have Christian Pache. He is an absolutely electric player. I don't know if you saw the catch he made in yesterday's game.
I did.
Basically, went up against the wall, deflected the ball to himself, and then caught it on the way down, and gave his nice little flex at midfield.
I mean, he earned it. That was impressive.
Yeah, he's like I said, an electric player. Hasn't come around on the offensive side of the baseball just yet, but he's making good contact, putting the ball in play. So eventually that'll come around for him as long as he keeps hitting the ball hard. It's basically just bad luck when you hit the ball hard and don't get a hit. So he's one of those players that I would love to see extended. And maybe I think by July this season, we should know if Howard Terminal is going to be built, or if they're moving on to Vegas, or whatever their other backup plans might be. But the discouraging thing that I've seen, we only had, I think it was 17,000 people at opening day in Oakland on Monday. Obviously, it was against the Orioles, that are a terrible team. So it's tough to draw a ton of fans on when the opposing team is not great, because you don't really have any of the visiting fans coming in to see them. But Tuesday night, they had 3,784 fans, I think, in the stands, and that's all the national media could talk about, and they don't talk about the reasons why there's only 3,784. Yeah, and I want to talk about that, because John Fisher has doubled ticket prices while shipping off all of the franchise type players in Matt Olson, Matt Chapman. I mean, those are the cornerstones. So, you obviously traded Chris Bassett, that was top of the rotation. They've been rumored to be in talks with the White Sox for Frankie Montas, which is currently our best pitcher. So when you're doing all those things, doubling ticket prices, no break on the concession stands, and then you have your opening weekend on school nights every one of those days, you're going to have some low numbers. And John Fisher has done nothing but ostracize the Oakland fans. He's basically threatened at every corner that he can. I'll just move the team. You guys don't want to pay my prices. You don't want to show up to games. Then I'll just move. And that's what he's doing. And I don't know if he's necessarily trying to show that Oakland doesn't support their team. I think more what he's trying to show is that the Coliseum site is not viable, because he is dumping millions of dollars per month just in legal fees to get this Howard Terminal stadium built. He's making multiple offers on land out in Vegas as backup plans, but I don't think those are real offers. I really think he wants to stay in Oakland because he sees all of these communities that have multi-million-dollar average home prices in Oakland, in that Alameda County and surrounding areas. This is not a small market. So I think he wants to stay in Oakland, but he also is not doing much to endear himself to the fans. So it's kind of a two-edged sword there. You're doing things to take away from the product on the field, raising prices, and then expecting people to just show up and support your team. So it's a tough situation for the players because obviously they only have 4,000 people out there supporting them, and some of those might even be visiting team fans. But
probably,
I don't know. But in terms of the on-field product, the A's are absolutely stunning this year. I mean,
yeah, they're overperforming.
Like you've talked about with your Pirates, they go out there and they fight. I mean, they've played some really tough teams in Toronto. They took 3 of 4 from the Rays. Obviously, the Orioles are not a great team, but every team they've played so far, they've played very well. They've been competitive in every game. There's been no blowouts. They have the highest
guys.
Yeah, I mean, they have the highest run differential in the American League right now. They have the third best record, something like that, in the American League. So, I mean, just everyone had written them off before the season even started. And some of the guys that they picked up off waivers, Sheldon Noisy, he is killing the ball right now. You have Seth
Brown.
Yeah, Seth Brown is absolutely tearing the cover off the ball when he comes up. Yeah, I mean, he's got, I think, 12 runs batted in, which is second in the AL. Tony Kemp's playing really well. Sean Murphy's playing really well. Pache, like I said, great defensively. He's doing okay on offense. So it's just honestly been an exciting team to watch, which I didn't think it was going to be. And
I know, I'm happy for you.
With some of the guys that are on the COVID list right now, like we had Nick Allen get called up yesterday, and he played in his first Major League Baseball game. We had Zach Logue. He came up and got his first win. He got sent back down today to AAA, but he looked very good in his first appearance. We had Jackson get his first save last night. They lost today, 1-0, which obviously the bats cooled off a little bit, but the bullpen has been surprisingly great for all the guys they lost from the bullpen last year. And as bad as the bullpen was last year, all these young guys are coming in hungry, and I think they only have allowed 1 earned run since the first series of the season. So Dalton Jeffries and Paul Blackburn have been off to great starts. They've looked like Major League Baseball ready starters. Aller, not so much. He's had a rough start. I think he's had 2, and I want to say his ERA is almost up in the 20s. So not great, but he's making some progress. I think he only gave up 3 runs, only 2 earned in his last start. So a lot of good things to see there. Anything else you had with MLB before we move on?
Yeah, that was one thing I was checking on earlier. I was watching the Detroit game, and he was 3 away at the time, but it looks like he got 2 hits. But Miguel he's only 1 away now from 3,000, Cabrera. So that's pretty exciting.
I read a stat that if he went 0 for his next 300 and something at bats, he would still have a 300 batting average for his career, which is pure insanity.
That's crazy.
He's a good
player, man.
He's one of the best hitters I've ever seen. I think Tony Gwynn's probably the best I've ever seen, but Miguel Cabrera, total package with the power that he brought, and then the eye that he has, and just a pure hitter. He's absolutely unstoppable. So
I was hoping he'd get it tonight.
Can't wait until he does. That'll be something to celebrate. Obviously, he's on the back end of his career, but he's still an exciting player to watch, and he's one of the absolute best characters in baseball.
Oh, yeah.
He's always
It's a
messing
good
with
time.
people, so love seeing that. But
That's all I got, though. I had to double check where he ended up.
We'll go real quick just through the NBA. John and I will talk more about the Warriors specifically on Sunday, but they have a 2-0 lead over Denver, and quite honestly, Denver hasn't even really been competitive in that series. The new lineup that the Warriors have been putting in is absolutely unstoppable, and I hope it continues through the entire playoffs. The only other notes I really had about the NBA is the Celtics and Brooklyn game. That was a complete stunner. It looked like Brooklyn was going to win that game the entire time, and then at the very last second, the Celtics had a quick layup that won that game. Devin Booker hurt his hamstring in the Phoenix and Pelican series. Haven't heard severity yet, but I think he's could possibly miss the next 2 games at the minimum. So that could hurt Phoenix. They lost to the Pelicans in that game 2. Dallas and Utah are split at 1-1. Memphis and Minnesota are split at 1-1. Memphis absolutely destroyed the Grizzlies in that first game, and then the Grizzlies came back and returned the favor in game 2.
Yeah, Minnesota was pretty fun that first game.
Oh, for sure.
I don't know. It's fun watching a young team that's not supposed to do any good, even if it's in a short window. But
honestly, like both of those teams, I think if we get either of those teams, well, obviously we're going to get one of them, but either of those teams, I think, match up well against the Warriors. So I think that's going to be a really good series. And I would like whoever comes out of those 2 teams, whoever comes out of the rest of the Western Conference, even if it's the Suns. I mean, I don't know how long Booker's going to be out, but they're going to need him going into deep into the playoffs. So, and then in terms of the East Conference, we already talked about the Celtics. They actually won another one, so they got a 2-0 lead. Milwaukee, I think, is playing the Bulls right now, but they currently lead one game to none. Philadelphia actually just pulled off. Embiid hit a 3 with 0.8 seconds left to give them a 3-0 lead in that series. So it looks like Philadelphia is going to advance. And then Miami leads Atlanta 2-0. That's looking like it might be a pretty lopsided series there. Hopefully Trey can pull off some magic, but to at least make it a series. But looks like the Heat are probably going to advance in that one. So with that being said, like I said, John and I will break down the NBA a little bit more on Sunday when we get back together. I did want to just mention I went on a little trip. My wife and I celebrated her birthday and our 10th anniversary by going to Nashville, and it was a phenomenal trip. We didn't do too much off of the main drag there, which is Broadway Street. We did Country Music Hall of Fame, Johnny Cash Museum, and we went to a Predators game.
Woo woo!
We weren't super sold on going to hockey because I've never been, and my wife is not huge into sports, but the stadium was literally right across the street from where we were eating, and I saw it, and I was like, I wonder if they have a game tonight. Check, they did. Got tickets, and I wish I could say it was more fun. Like, it was fun, but the Predators got absolutely destroyed. They lost 4-0. They actually scored 1 goal, but it got called back on an offsides in a review. And I still don't understand how they were offsides if the puck was like in front of the goalie and they slapped it in. But I don't know.
It's because as they advanced into the zone, they were offsides.
Okay.
Didn't catch it till later.
I mean, they don't explain that when you're just sitting in the arena. They just announce the ruling. But anyway, they called off that, and then it was just downhill from there. And the Predators were like 43. I think they had identical records. I think they were like 43-20 something, both teams. But the Oilers, man, they looked like a polished team, and the Predators couldn't even complete passes to each other. The shots they were getting off. Kevin Smith is 40 years old. I don't know if that's normal for goalies, but man, they couldn't sneak a goal past him. Like anything they got up was just getting blocked. He would catch it, snag it right out of the air. It was embarrassing. All the Predators fans were just getting smashed, and every time they would just yell at the other team. Yeah. I did boo Evander Kane. because can't stand him.
My guy.
So, yeah. He got absolutely smashed in the third period, and I was just like, okay, I'm happy now. We're good.
It. I love it. Yeah, that's one of those things. That's why I love hockey so much. Is you can have two teams that are neck and neck, very competitive, and tonight wasn't their night. I mean, it's a brutal season for 82 games. I mean, an example with the Oilers is so they have an amazing offense with Draisaitl and McDavid. Probably one of the best young duos in the league.
Yeah, they were pretty good.
But they're also so one-dimensional. So, like, they may go to the playoffs and go out in the first round because of how one-dimensional they are. It's just very crazy because Nashville's a very gritty team. They play teams really well. They are a little more physical than some. It's just I love hockey more so than even other sports that literally anybody can win on any night. It is very, very difficult to get that little tiny puck in that net. So
yeah,
I'm glad you went.
It wasn't for McDavid. I can't remember who had the hat trick. I think it was Draisaitl.
Yeah,
but it was like every time they scored a goal, one of those two touched it or both touched it. And
I'm sure
because I had the rosters for each team that I grabbed on my way in, and I was looking for their numbers because you told me the names, and I was like, "Yep, that was him." Okay, they're pretty good. But anyway, we'll move on. I mean, if anyone has any questions about Nashville, I could give you some decent suggestions on what to do and where to go.
I'm actually going to pick your brain because my wife is the biggest Johnny Cash fan ever, and we want to go.
Oh man, that was a really cool museum. Little known fact: he was a terrible actor. Great musician, terrible actor. But no, we didn't get too much off the main drag there because like we flew there, just took public transportation to get from the airport to our hotel. Our hotel was right off Broadway, so most of our time was spent right there. We spent a lot of time at the Assembly Food Hall, and then Hattie B's was fantastic. Rippy's was good. We went to the Margaritaville. They do with the highway on Sirius XM. We went and did that, so that was fun.
That's awesome.
Just a lot of things that obviously we wouldn't normally do without the kids. So the grandparents got to stay home and take care of the kids. My parents took care of them for 2.5 days, and then her parents took care of them for 2.5 days. So they split duties, and they both went home and said, "I don't know how young people do this."
I love it.
Yeah, the grandparents got to spend some great time with the boys. But yeah, I'll tell you more on fair if you have any questions. We went to the Parthenon. We did pretty much all the touristy stuff and then a little more. So it was a great trip. But so I guess I could just say that was my best of the week is the trip. Just had a great time. And then my worst of the week was looking at the bank account afterwards. And then coming back to reality and realizing we have all that laundry to catch up on and getting things in order. The boys are starting soccer this week, so we've had practice every day. We got games starting, so it's been busy, but obviously nothing too bad there.
I like it. My best of the week, something very, very excited about, but my beautiful wife Carlene and I are expecting our first kid, which is absolutely amazing. We found out it's a baby boy a couple weeks ago, and we actually finally settled on a name as well. He will be Jack Warren Gilmore, which they're all rooted in both sides of our family, the names, so we're pretty excited about that. Just couldn't be happier. So best of the week goes to my wife for sure. Worst of the week, I don't know. I wanted to put Cam Newton, but I feel like I beat him enough. Honestly, I think my worst of the week is just I still have a bad taste in my mouth about the way contracts and stuff are, how the offseason works nowadays. I hope it settles down one day. It makes for good drama, makes for, lots of things to talk about, but I don't know.
That's not the worst of the week I thought you would say. So
Oh, what did you think I was going with?
thought you were going to go with your bum shoulder.
I don't want to talk about it.
Fair enough.
I'm getting old.
I'll be in that same situation come late summer. So
it's depressing. I'm sure at some point you will see me on this podcast looking a little weird in a sling.
Yeah.
But whatever. Yeah, I mean, that could be my secondary worst of the week. Don't get old, folks.
Yes.
No, that's all I got, I think.
Okay. Well, we appreciate you guys tuning in. We need some more comments. So next time we do one of these live events, we want you guys to tune in. We want you to put any questions, comments, feedback you have in the chat box there on this Facebook live event. There should be a spot for you guys to add any comments. And then obviously, as we continue to grow this, we'd love for you guys to share any of that stuff, like comment on the YouTube channel. We have this stuff everywhere. So just get those in and we would appreciate it. We love the engagement. So as always, we thank you for tuning in. And Kyle, we will talk to you soon.
Always a pleasure. I don't even care if you hop on and tell us how terrible we look.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I don't know how you could say this looks terrible, but
I mean, that's a good looking shirt. That is a good looking shirt. And it's also true.
Yeah.
Undoubtedly.
Best logo in college sports. So can't debate that. All right, buddy. We'll talk to you soon.